The morning sun cast a golden glow over Kensington Palace as Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood before her bedroom mirror, carefully adjusting the sapphire earrings that had once belonged to Princess Diana. Her reflection showed a woman who had grown into her role with grace and confidence, yet today carried the weight of history on her shoulders. The coronation of King Charles III was not just another royal event. It was a moment that would define the monarchy for generations to come. Prince William emerged from his dressing room, resplendent in his military uniform, the medals catching the light as he moved. His face bore the same thoughtful expression he had worn since childhood, during significant family moments. He approached his wife and gently placed his hands on her shoulders, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "Ready for this?" he asked softly, though they both knew the question carried layers of meaning beyond the day's ceremony. Catherine turned to face him, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from his jacket. "As ready as one can be to watch your father become king," she replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Down the hallway, the sound of excited chatter echoed as their three children prepared for what would be one of the most important days of their young lives. Prince George, now old enough to understand the significance of the occasion, had been practicing his formal posture for weeks. His younger siblings, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, brought their own unique energy to the morning preparations. Charlotte had insisted on helping choose her outfit weeks in advance, displaying the same attention to detail that had made her a favorite among royal watchers. She understood that today was special, though perhaps not fully grasping how this day would change their family's position in the royal hierarchy forever. Young Prince Louis, with his characteristic unpredictability, had already managed to untie his shoes twice and was currently engaged in a serious conversation with his reflection about whether his hair looked proper enough for Grandpa's big day. The palace staff moved with practiced efficiency around the family, each person playing their part in ensuring that everything proceeded flawlessly. Maria, the children's longtime nanny, helped Charlotte with her accessories while simultaneously keeping a watchful eye on Louis, who had discovered that his formal shoes made interesting sounds on the marble floors. William's private secretary knocked gently on the door, reminding them that their departure time was approaching. The prince and princess exchanged a look that spoke of shared understanding. They were about to step into a new chapter of their lives, one where William would be the heir apparent to the throne, and their children would move one step closer to their own destinies. Catherine gathered her clutch and took one final look around their private quarters. In a few hours, when they returned from Westminster Abbey, the world would be different. Her father-in-law would be King Charles III, her husband would be next in line to the throne, and their family would carry new responsibilities and expectations. The drive to Westminster Abbey would take them through streets lined with thousands of well-wishers, past barriers held by excited crowds who had waited for hours just to catch a glimpse of the royal family. But for now, in these quiet moments before they departed Kensington Palace, they were simply a family preparing for a grandfather's special day, trying to manage their own emotions while ensuring their children felt secure and excited rather than overwhelmed by the magnitude of the occasion that awaited them. The royal convoy pulled away from Kensington Palace with precision timing that had been rehearsed countless times. Catherine settled into the luxurious interior of their official car, smoothing her elegant coat dress one final time. The fabric had been chosen specifically for its significance, a subtle nod to British textile heritage that fashion experts would later analyze in detail. William sat beside her, occasionally glancing out the tinted windows at the crowds already gathering along their route. His expression was calm, but Catherine could see the subtle tension in his jaw that appeared whenever he was processing something significant. Today wasn't just about supporting his father. It was about accepting his new role as the direct heir to the throne. In the seat facing them, the children were a study in contrasts. George sat with remarkable composure for someone his age, occasionally straightening his tie with the same unconscious gesture his father made. His understanding of royal protocol had developed naturally over the years, and today he seemed determined to prove himself worthy of his position in the line of succession. Charlotte pressed her face to the window, waving enthusiastically at every group of people they passed. Her genuine delight in seeing the crowds brought smiles to passers-by, many of whom had been waiting since dawn just for this moment. She had inherited her grandmother Diana's natural ability to connect with people, even through the barrier of a car window. Louis, true to form, was providing running commentary on everything he saw. "Look at all the flags," he exclaimed, pointing at the Union Jacks that decorated every lamppost and building along their route. "Are they all here to see Grandpa become king?" His innocent questions brought lightness to the otherwise solemn journey. Catherine reached across to adjust Louis's collar, using the gesture to ground herself in the maternal role that had always come most naturally to her. Despite the grandeur surrounding them, she was still fundamentally a mother, ensuring her children were comfortable and happy on what could be an overwhelming day. The crowds grew thicker as they approached central London. Through the bulletproof glass, they could see people of all ages pressed against the barriers, many holding homemade signs welcoming the new king or expressing support for the royal family. Some had camped overnight, their dedication evident in the sleeping bags and folding chairs that dotted the sidewalks. William pointed out particularly creative signs to the children, turning the journey into a game that kept them engaged, while managing their energy for the long ceremony ahead. One sign reading, "Long live the king and his wonderful family," made Charlotte giggle and clap her hands. As they turned onto Whitehall, the magnitude of the occasion became fully apparent. The street was lined with military personnel in full ceremonial dress, their uniforms impeccable despite the early morning preparations. The sound of drums and brass instruments floated through the air as various military bands took their positions for the procession that would follow the ceremony. Catherine felt a flutter of nerves as Westminster Abbey came into view. The ancient structure had been draped with royal banners and flowers, transforming it into a setting worthy of the historic moment about to unfold within its walls. Television crews from around the world had claimed every available vantage point, their cameras ready to capture every detail of the day. The children's excitement was palpable now. Even George, who had maintained his composure throughout the journey, couldn't help but stare at the magnificent scene before them. This was where his grandfather would officially become king, where centuries of royal tradition would continue through their family. Their car slowed as they approached the Abbey, and Catherine could see other members of the royal family arriving, in their own vehicles. The carefully orchestrated timing meant that each arrival would be captured perfectly for the millions of people watching around the world, but also ensured that the family could support each other through this momentous transition. The moment their car door opened, the wall of sound hit them like a physical force. Thousands of voices cheered, camera shutters clicked in rapid succession, and the ceremonial music swelled around Westminster Abbey. Catherine stepped out first, her movements graceful despite the intense scrutiny. Every detail of her appearance would be analyzed and celebrated across front pages worldwide within hours. William emerged behind her, automatically scanning the crowd while maintaining the warm smile that had become his trademark at public events. His military training showed in the way he carried himself, confident, alert, but approachable. This balance had taken years to perfect, and today it served him well as he prepared to support his father while managing his own complex emotions about their changing family dynamics. George stepped out with remarkable poise, his young face serious, as he seemed to understand the weight of the moment. He had been coached extensively about today's protocol, but no amount of preparation could fully ready a child for the reality of such intense public attention. Still, he straightened his shoulders and walked with the dignity expected of someone third in line to the throne. Charlotte practically bounced with excitement as she took in the magnificent scene around Westminster Abbey. The ancient stones seemed to glow in the morning light, decorated with thousands of flowers that had been arranged by teams of florists working through the night. Her eyes widened as she spotted the horse guards in their ceremonial uniforms, their presence adding to the fairy tale atmosphere that would make this day unforgettable for her. Louis looked around with wide-eyed wonder, his hand instinctively reaching for his mother's as the crowd's cheers intensified. The 5-year-old had attended royal events before, but nothing on this scale. The combination of excitement and slight nervousness was written clearly across his young features as he tried to process the enormity of what was happening around him. Catherine gently guided the children toward the Abbey entrance. Her maternal instincts in full display as she ensured each child felt secure while navigating the formal requirements of their arrival. Her experience as a mother had taught her to read her children's needs instantly, and she could see that while George was managing well and Charlotte was thriving, Louis might need extra support during the long ceremony ahead. The family was greeted by senior clergy members who would play crucial roles in the coronation service. The Archbishop of Canterbury, resplendent in his ceremonial robes, welcomed them with the same warm dignity he would later bring to crowning King Charles III. His presence provided a sense of continuity that connected this modern coronation to centuries of royal tradition. As they moved through the Abbey's entrance, the children's eyes adjusted to the dramatically different lighting inside the ancient building. Hundreds of candles flickered throughout the space, their warm glow reflecting off the gold and precious stones that decorated the ceremonial items prepared for the service. The effect was both magical and solemn, creating an atmosphere that seemed to exist outside of ordinary time. William paused briefly to speak with other members of the royal family who had arrived earlier. These quiet family moments, captured by the cameras but not fully understood by the watching world, were precious opportunities for the family to support each other before taking their ceremonial positions for the service. Catherine noticed how the children were responding to their surroundings. George was taking mental notes of everything he saw, his natural curiosity about royal history, engaging fully with the remarkable artifacts and traditions on display. Charlotte was whispering excited observations to her mother, her enthusiasm bringing smiles to the faces of nearby officials. Louis was staying close to his parents, his usual energy somewhat subdued by the grandeur surrounding him. The sound of the organ being tested echoed through the Abbey's soaring arches, its rich tones adding another layer to the sensory experience that would make this day memorable for the entire family. Soon that same organ would accompany the ancient words that would transform Prince Charles into King Charles III, marking the beginning of a new era for their family and the nation. Abbey staff guided them toward their designated seats, positioned where they could clearly observe the ceremony, while the children would be comfortable throughout the lengthy service. The careful planning that had gone into every aspect of this day was evident in these small but crucial details that would help the family navigate this historic moment together. The ceremonial procession began with a grandeur that seemed to transport everyone present back through centuries of royal tradition. Catherine watched as her father-in-law, still Prince Charles in these final moments before his coronation, walked with measured dignity toward the altar, where he would be transformed into King Charles III. The weight of crown jewels and ceremonial robes could not diminish the quiet strength he carried as he prepared to accept the responsibilities that would define the rest of his life. William's expression was a careful balance of pride and solemnity as he observed his father's approach to the throne. Years of preparation had led to this moment, yet nothing could fully prepare someone for watching their parent accept the ultimate symbol of duty and service to the nation. His hand briefly found Catherine's, a small gesture of connection that helped ground them both in the magnitude of what they were witnessing. The children sat remarkably still, their attention captured by the pageantry unfolding before them. George seemed to understand that he was watching his grandfather accept a role that would one day pass to his father, and eventually to him. The realization of this generational continuity was written subtly across his young features as he observed every detail of the ancient ceremony. Charlotte was mesmerized by the music that filled every corner of Westminster Abbey. The choir's voices seemed to lift the entire congregation, their harmonies weaving together centuries of tradition with the promise of future possibilities. Her natural love of music found perfect expression in this moment, and she unconsciously swayed slightly to the rhythm of hymns that had been sung at coronations for generations. Louis had initially been fascinated by the golden ceremonial objects being carried in procession, but as the ceremony progressed, he began to fidget slightly. Catherine quietly provided him with small distractions, pointing out architectural details or whispering brief explanations of what was happening, helping him stay engaged without disrupting the solemnity of the occasion. The moment of actual coronation arrived with a hush that seemed to still even the ancient stones of the Abbey. As the Archbishop of Canterbury lifted St. Edward's crown, the weight of 1,000 years of monarchy seemed concentrated in that single golden circle. William felt his breath catch as he watched the crown descend onto his father's head, officially transforming him into King Charles III and forever altering their family's place in history. Catherine observed the moment with the keen awareness that came from her unique position as someone who had married into this tradition, rather than being born to it. She had spent years learning to navigate royal protocol, but this moment crystallized her understanding of the true weight carried by those born to serve the crown. Her children would never have the luxury of choosing an ordinary life, and watching the coronation helped her better understand the magnitude of the path that lay ahead for them. The congregation's response to the newly crowned king was thunderous, filling Westminster Abbey with cheers and applause that seemed to shake the building's ancient foundations. George joined in the applause with enthusiasm, his young face beaming with pride for his grandfather's achievement. Charlotte clapped her hands with delight, her joy infectious even in this most formal of settings. King Charles III's first moments as monarch were marked by a dignity that seemed to transform him before their eyes. The man who had spent decades preparing for this role now fully inhabited it, his bearing reflecting both the weight of responsibility and the deep satisfaction of finally fulfilling his life's purpose. When his eyes found his family in the congregation, his smile was radiant with gratitude for their presence during this pivotal moment. The ceremony continued with traditional elements that connected this modern coronation to hundreds of years of royal history. Each ritual, from the anointing with holy oil to the presentation of ceremonial regalia, served to weave King Charles III into the continuous thread of monarchy that stretched back through generations of British rulers. As the formal coronation concluded and the newly crowned king prepared to process out of Westminster Abbey, the family prepared for their own part in the historic day. Soon they would join the ceremonial procession back to Buckingham Palace, where thousands more well-wishers waited to celebrate this new chapter in royal history. The children's excitement was building again as they anticipated the carriage ride that would carry them through streets filled with cheering crowds, marking not just their grandfather's coronation, but their own step forward in the royal journey that would define their entire lives. The Golden State carriage that would carry them through London streets represented more than just transportation. It was a moving symbol of royal continuity that connected King Charles III's coronation to centuries of monarchical tradition. Catherine helped arrange the children's formal attire one final time before they climbed aboard, ensuring that Charlotte's dress lay perfectly and that Louis's jacket remained properly buttoned despite his excitement. William took his position in the carriage with the natural grace that came from years of public appearances, but today carried additional significance. As the son of the newly crowned king, every gesture and expression would be scrutinized for signs of how the royal family was adapting to their new roles. His calm confidence provided stability for both his children and the thousands of people who would see them during the procession. The moment their carriage emerged from Westminster Abbey's vicinity, the sound was overwhelming. Tens of thousands of voices rose in celebration, creating a wall of joy that seemed to lift the entire procession. George pressed against the carriage window, his young face displaying amazement at the sea of people who had gathered to witness this historic day. Many in the crowd held signs specifically welcoming the Wales family, showing how the public had embraced them as the future of the monarchy. Charlotte waved enthusiastically at every group they passed, her natural charm drawing cheers and smiles from spectators who had waited hours for just this moment. Her genuine delight in connecting with people reminded observers of her late grandmother, Princess Diana, whose warmth had made her beloved by the public. The little princess seemed to understand instinctively that her role involved bringing joy to others, even during formal occasions. Louis alternated between waving at the crowd and asking questions about everything he saw. "Why are there so many people?" he wondered aloud, pressing his face to the glass to get a better view of the elaborate decorations that adorned every building along their route. His innocent curiosity provided lighter moments during what could otherwise have been an overwhelming experience for such a young child. The procession moved at a stately pace that allowed spectators to truly see the royal family while giving the children time to process the incredible response from the public. Catherine pointed out particularly creative displays of support, helping her children understand that these people had come not just to celebrate King Charles III, but to show their affection for the entire royal family and their hope for the future. Military bands positioned throughout the route provided a soundtrack of triumph that enhanced the celebratory atmosphere. The precision of their performances, combined with the visual spectacle of hundreds of uniformed personnel, created an experience that seemed to exist outside ordinary time. For the children, this combination of music, pageantry, and public celebration would become one of their most treasured childhood memories. As they progressed through central London, the family could see the elaborate preparations that had transformed the city for this coronation day. British flags flew from every available surface, flowers decorated lampposts and building facades, and temporary grandstands had been erected to accommodate the thousands of people who had traveled from around the world to witness this historic event. William occasionally leaned over to explain significant landmarks to the children, using the journey as an impromptu history lesson that connected their family's story to the broader narrative of British history. His commentary helped the children understand that they were not just passengers in a parade, but participants in a continuing story that linked past, present, and future. The carriage wheels rumbled over ancient cobblestones and modern pavement, alike, their rhythmic sound providing a steady beat beneath the chaos of celebration surrounding them. This combination of old and new seemed to perfectly capture the nature of the monarchy itself, rooted in tradition, yet constantly adapting to contemporary realities. Catherine observed how each child was processing this extraordinary experience differently. George was studying everything with the serious attention of someone who understood his future responsibilities. Charlotte was embracing the joy and spectacle with infectious enthusiasm. Louis was simply trying to absorb the sensory overload, while staying connected to his family's reassuring presence. As Buckingham Palace came into view, the family prepared for the final phase of their coronation day experience. Soon they would appear on the famous balcony where the public expected to see them, completing a day that had transformed not just King Charles III, but their entire family's relationship with the crown and the people they would spend their lives serving. Buckingham Palace rose before them like a symbol of permanence in a changing world, its familiar facade now holding new meaning as the official residence of King Charles III. The crowds gathered in front of the palace were perhaps the largest and most enthusiastic of the entire day, their cheers creating an almost physical force that seemed to welcome the royal family home after their historic journey through London's streets. Catherine gathered the children as their carriage approached the palace courtyard, preparing them for what would be the final public moment of this extraordinary day. The famous balcony appearance was a tradition that connected this coronation to countless royal celebrations throughout history, and she wanted to ensure that her children understood the significance of sharing this moment with the thousands of people who had waited patiently to see their newly crowned king and his family. William helped each child from the carriage with the careful attention that had become second nature during years of public appearances. Today, however, carried additional weight as he guided his children toward a balcony where they would stand not just as grandchildren of the king, but as the next generation of working royals who would eventually inherit the responsibilities currently passing to his father. Inside the palace, King Charles III was already preparing for the balcony appearance that would mark the ceremonial conclusion of his coronation day. The crown that had transformed him hours earlier at Westminster Abbey continued to serve as a visible symbol of the monarchy's continuity, but now it rested more naturally on his head, as if he had finally grown fully into the role he had prepared for his entire life. The family gathered in the room behind the famous balcony, sharing a private moment together, before emerging into the public eye one final time. George straightened his tie with the same unconscious gesture his father made, while Charlotte smoothed her dress and Louis bounced slightly with anticipation of seeing the massive crowd that awaited them outside. Catherine took a moment to appreciate how the day had unfolded. Her children had conducted themselves with remarkable grace throughout the lengthy ceremony and procession, adapting to each new experience while maintaining the dignity expected of their positions. Their natural personalities had shone through, even during the most formal moments, endearing them further to a public that was already charmed by their authenticity. The palace doors leading to the balcony opened, and the sound of the crowd intensified dramatically. King Charles III stepped forward first, his presence immediately drawing cheers that seemed to shake the building's foundations. The newly crowned monarch acknowledged the crowd's enthusiasm with the warm dignity that had characterized his entire approach to this historic day. William and Catherine emerged next, flanking the children as they had throughout the day. The public's response was immediate and overwhelming, with particular enthusiasm greeting the sight of George, Charlotte, and Louis. The crowd seemed to understand that they were witnessing not just the celebration of a new king, but the presentation of the monarchy's future generation. Charlotte immediately began waving at the crowd with the enthusiasm that had made her a favorite throughout the day's events. Her genuine joy in connecting with people was evident in every gesture, and the Eid crowd responded with equal warmth. George stood with remarkable composure, occasionally raising his hand in acknowledgement of the cheers while maintaining the dignity expected of his position in the line of succession. Louis, perhaps overwhelmed by the scale of the crowd and the intensity of their response, stayed close to his parents while still participating in the moment. His slight uncertainty was endearing rather than concerning, reminding observers that despite their formal roles, these were still children experiencing something far beyond ordinary childhood experiences. The Royal Air Force flypast that concluded, the balcony appearance provided a spectacular finale to the coronation celebrations. As vintage aircraft and modern jets streamed overhead in perfect formation, the family looked up together, sharing a moment of wonder that seemed to encapsulate the day's successful blend of tradition and progress. King Charles III's first balcony appearance as monarch drew to a close with the family waving one final time to the thousands of people who had made this day truly special. As they turned to go back inside Buckingham Palace, each family member carried their own memories and emotions from a day that had changed not just the monarchy, but their personal understanding of the roles they would play in Britain's future. The coronation of King Charles III was complete, but for William, Catherine, and their children, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives as the crown moved one generation closer to them. The day had shown them the weight of royal responsibility, but also the incredible support and affection of the people they would spend their lives serving.